Hi, good morning. We are reading Mystery of History, Volume 4. We're on page 27. And unfortunately, this is the second time we're recording this. So you're not going to get the benefit of us just kind of reading leisurely and chatting. This is going to be a quick read so that we don't miss any pages and you have all of the pages. So you won't get nearly as much of our exciting commentary that goes along with it. I'll just be reading quickly. So here we go. We were on Voltaire. Voltaire was, for a time, the closest of friends with Frederick the Great in Prussia. Frederick adored Voltaire's wit and mind and invited him to live in his palace and to teach French prose and poetry. So, Voltaire moved to Prussia in 1750. Frederick the Great tried to be a quote-unquote enlightened king under Voltaire's influence. He wrote a small book against Machiavellianism, which Machiavellianism means a ruthless government that rules by deception. Unfortunately, the friendship between Frederick and Voltaire did not last. Frederick grew more warlike, and as he became more warlike, Voltaire approved of him less and less. Frederick the Great, in the end, fell short of being enlightened at all, and Voltaire, after 3 years, moved away from Prussia to to a town near Geneva in Switzerland. He spent 23 years there. Living near Geneva, Voltaire could not help but brush up against the Calvinists. He was not tolerant of their intolerance. And we noted here how it was a little funny that they were both intolerant of each other. Voltaire saw a place, however, for religion. He believed that religion could at times be beneficial for society, and he wrote, if God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him. But most of the time, Voltaire was so anti-church that both the Protestants and the Catholics despised him. His deistic half-belief in God caused Christians to be angry, but it gave comfort to the secular-minded. He did, however, do one thing for Christians. He promoted religious freedom. He thought it was absurd that men would fight to the death over doctrine and creed. Even though he was a bit intolerant of other people's views, he didn't think that it should end in death. So for this, his church enemies would lighten up their anger toward him. As Voltaire got older, the priests were not as much worried about his writings and more concerned for his soul, so they wanted him to go to heaven. They were pestering him at his death, which seems a little weird to be like. Pestering him means like they won't leave him alone about it. They wanted him to confess the teachings of the Catholic Church. Well, Voltaire would not follow tradition and pray a typical Catholic confession. On February 28th in 1778, it was just months before he died, and he wrote, I die adoring God, loving my friends, not hating my enemies, and detesting persecution. A few days later, he wrote with more concern for the church. He said, I die in the Catholic religion in which I was born, hoping in the divine mercy that it will pardon all my faults, and that if I have ever scandalized the church, I ask pardon of God and her meaning the church. And we also noted that though he says he believes in God and asks for God's mercy, that he does not confess Christ as Lord. And we pray that he did live on his life. Voltaire died on May 30th. Mrs. Hobart says, did Voltaire scandalize the church? Yes, she says, because in freeing men's minds in his perception, he had written pages and pages of damaging articles against Christianity. But he also defended freedom of religion. So he was both scorned and admired. As one author put it, pronounce that name Voltaire in the presence of a clergyman, and you will find that you've made a declaration of war. And yet Voltaire was the greatest man of his century and did more to free the human race than any other of the sons of men. Okay, so then we moved on to Jean-Jacques Rousseau. We're moving quickly, unfortunately, because we've already done all of this one time with a lot more exciting discussion, but at least we'll have it recorded. Yes.
It feels so quick now since we that was way quicker. It makes it feel super long when we do our exciting commentary. That is so pitiful that you've missed it.
Okay, so let's look now at Rousseau. He was another leading thinker in the Enlightenment. He was born in Geneva, and we also noted that Voltaire went to Geneva. But Rousseau was born there in 1712. He then moved to Paris, and Voltaire was also in Paris at that time. But he didn't join the social circle of Voltaire because he was too poor. Rousseau barely squeaked out an income. He was reformatting musical scores. But he had something in common with Voltaire, is that he loved to write. Yes?
What is barely squeaked out?
It means he barely made enough to live on. He didn't make very much money. So Rousseau became famous for his pen, for his writings. His first masterpiece was a romantic story titled Julie, or it was also called The New Heloise. But my babes prefer Julie, the name title Julie, since that's my name. In it, Rousseau let his feelings and emotions flow. But at the end of the story, Julie, the main character, chooses to be good friends with a man she loved rather than betray her marriage vows to her husband. So we decided this was kind of both good and bad, because it was good that she decided, take your hand off that please, to not betray her marriage. However, we also don't want to get as close to the boundary of sin as possible. We want to stay far away from it. Like getting as close to the edge of a cliff as possible. We want to stay a good distance away, because if you get as close to the edge as you can, what could happen?
You could fall off.
Yeah, so staying far away might have been not being friends with him at all, in my view. However, going on, because we're not having long commentary, and there I had some commentary. This love story was written at a time when Paris was sizzling with immorality, meaning they were stepping way outside of God's boundaries. And the popularity of Julie was a sign that the French were weary of this decadence or loose living. So French housewives were cherishing Rousseau for making virtue popular again. It's a bit ironic that a hopeless romantic like Rousseau was a moral guide. Like Voltaire, he was not a Christian leader. He was a deist. And remember, a deist means he believes a God exists, but he's not actively involved with men. He's not with men. He's just somewhere out there and not a part of our hearts. Apart from the beauty of nature, which Rousseau adored, he did not see God in the day-to-day. Rousseau denied the scriptural teaching that man is sinful. So he didn't think that man was sinful by nature, but we are by Adam's nature, not by God's nature. When God made us, we weren't sinful, but the soul chose to be sinful. But Rousseau thought that man was naturally good and could stay good if society didn't corrupt him. And we noted here that, so Rousseau's thinking that society is what corrupts man. And we also noted, because my son said, well, also women, and that's true. But in the Bible, when God made man, what it really says is God made Adam. He says he made Adam, which means male and female together, because it says God made Adam, he made them, plural, meaning male and female, according to his image. And so Adam means male and female together. But anyway, last point, because we're trying to finish this up, is that if Rousseau thinks that society is what corrupts man, but what is society made up of?
Man.
Right. So that means your argument is inherently wrong, because you're saying that society is what corrupts, but society is made up of man. So what corrupts society is man. So the corruption is coming from man. Okay, so we're on page 29. We finished page 28. We're on page 29. We're sorry we had to rush through that, but that was the second time we did that. And we will chat later.